Good afternoon from the KUOW newsroom. This is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with the roundup of today's top stories. It's Tuesday, February 3rd. The millionaire's tax is officially on the docket in the Washington state legislature. The bill brought by Democrats would apply a tax to every dollar over $1 million a household makes a year. Governor Bob Ferguson says it's a good start, but he says the current proposal doesn't give enough tax relief to small businesses and low-income families.
A significant percentage of these revenues must go back into the pocket of Washingtonians. The current proposal is not close to achieving that important objective.
The bill would cut sales taxes on personal hygiene products like deodorant, shampoo, and toothpaste. An estimated 30,000 of the state's richest residents would then be subject to this new income tax if it passes. We will have an in-depth look at this proposal coming up in just a few minutes here. A big vote in Congress today, with split reactions from our delegation. The U.S. House has passed a spending package to end the partial government shutdown. Both of Washington's 2 Republicans in Congress voted yes, along with 3 Democrats, Representatives Kim Schreier, Rick Larsen, and Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. The rest of the Democrats in the coalition voted no, with funding for ICE and the broader Department of Homeland Security being a big sticking point for the Democratic opposition. Trump has said he will sign the bill once it reaches his desk. Voting yes today, Larsen said he supported the package because it rejects the president's agenda by continuing to fund medical research and more. And on the matter of ICE funding, Larsen noted the package, quote, isolates DHS funding, which will be negotiated separately in the coming weeks. In immigration news, Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes says his officers have responded to a handful of federal immigration stops to observe and seek information for the public. Amy Radel has more.
Seattle's mayor and police chief say if members of the public see suspected federal immigration operations, they should call 911, and Seattle police will try to verify what's going on. Chief Barnes spoke about this Monday.
When we go to that scene, officers have their body-worn cameras activated. They seek to determine if this is a law enforcement purpose. If it is, they get the documentation and they do a report. We've always done that. That's really no change.
Seattle Police Officers Guild President Mike Solon said these dispatches risk pitting law enforcement agencies against one another. Barnes disagreed. He said the guidance is drawn from existing policies that tell officers they are not supposed to assist or interfere with federal immigration enforcement. Amy Radel, KUOW News.
As I keep complaining about to anyone who will listen, basically, the Pacific Northwest's all-important snowpack is in bad shape. Like rocks and dirt where snow should be bad. Our environment reporter John Ryan chatted with Karen Bumbacco, Washington's deputy state climatologist.
It's looking really bleak, in fact. As of today, February 3rd, we're at the 3rd lowest snowpack statewide since records began in 1985.
Whew. Bumbacco says the state's been consistently warmer than normal since October, often turning snow into rain. Last year, Washington had its warmest December in more than a century of record-keeping. Ski areas are feeling the heat now, with many chairlifts not running for lack of snow. By this summer, the missing snowpack could result in water shortages for irrigation and salmon, and dried-out forests prone to wildfires. Staying with the environment, say it with me, 6-PPD. A bill that would ban that toxic chemical from tires sold in Washington is making its way through the legislature. 6-PPD runoff instantly kills coho salmon. More from KNKX environment reporter Bellamy Palethorpe.
6-PPD has been used in tires for decades. It prevents rubber from cracking. About 5 years ago, a local researcher identified how tiny trace amounts of the chemical can be deadly to fish in our waterways.
It's so toxic that a billionth of a gram, an equivalent of a few drops, would be deadly to salmon in an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Senator Marco Lias, a Democrat from Edmonds, is the bill's prime sponsor. During a public hearing, he noted that billions of dollars for restoration of salmon habitat is potentially wasted when returning fish die before they can spawn.
It would be a tremendous shame to the state of Washington and to our taxpayers if after doing all this work, this dangerous chemical killed the salmon anyway.
Several representatives of the tire and retail industries testified against the bill, saying 6-PPD is already being regulated through a program called Safer Products for Washington. But proponents say that won't get it off the roads quickly enough. I'm Bellamy Palethorpe reporting.
In a sensitive story picking up attention today, Melinda French Gates spoke with NPR's podcast Wildcard. On it, she spoke about her ex-husband, Bill Gates, being mentioned in the latest release of the Epstein files. The documents include unsubstantiated notes that suggest the Microsoft founder might have engaged in extramarital sex with people who had ties to Epstein. French Gates told NPR's Wildcard show she thinks society's having a reckoning. She reflected on being the age of Epstein's victims and her daughters once being teenagers.
And I hope there's some justice for those now women, right? We see them standing up in front of microphones in D.C. What they went through is just unimaginable, I think.
French Gates also said she hopes there's accountability for those who abused the victims in Epstein's sex trafficking scheme.
So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me.
A spokesperson for Bill Gates says the claims were from a proven liar and are completely false. Today starts the one-week countdown until ballots are due for the February special election. In King County, voters will decide on about 25 school district funding measures. Election officials have a caution about mailing ballots this year. They recommend sending your ballot at least a week ahead of time. Ballots can also be placed in drop boxes until 8 p.m. on February 10th. From the Education Beat today, Green River College has ousted its president amid mounting concerns over a major budget deficit. Ann Dornfeld has more.
The Auburn Community College is one of the largest in King County and one of many facing budget shortfalls since the pandemic. The Board of Trustees voted Monday to end President Suzanne Johnson's contract, effective today. Green River Faculty Union President Dave Norberg.
We should have been having hard conversations 3-4 years ago about sustainability and managing our budget. And instead, it was just radio silence. We don't talk about the problem. If you need something, we'll happily spend more to fill that need.
Norberg says reckless spending contributed to a $14 million deficit at the school. In a written statement, the board called Johnson's termination a difficult decision. It credited her with meaningful contributions over her 9 years as president, including doubling the number of bachelor's degrees offered. Ann Dornfeld, KUOW News.
What is happening with the Seahawks? Here's the latest on the possible sale of the team. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is pushing back on a recent report that said the Hawks would be put up for sale shortly after the Super Bowl. Goodell says it was always understood that when former team owner Paul Allen died, the team would eventually be sold. But the commissioner says the timing of the sale would be left up to Jody Allen, who currently manages the trust that owns the team.
But eventually the team will need to be sold in accordance with that. That'll be Jody's decision when she does that, and we will be supportive of that.
Goodell also refutes a report that the Seahawks were fined by the NFL for being out of compliance with league ownership rules. According to some estimates, the Seahawks could be worth $7 to $8 billion. Quick transit note today, light rail will be closed this coming Saturday for the southern stretch of the One Line. Sound Transit says it's suspending service between Federal Way and Angle Lake to do essential maintenance on the new Federal Way extension. Riders can instead take Sound Transit shuttles. The rest of the line from Angle Lake north to Linwood will run as normal. Now, our feature story today. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson today addressed his concerns about a legislative proposal to tax the state's millionaires and billionaires. The bill would also cut some taxes that hit working people and small businesses the hardest. If it passes, it would be a major step in a state that currently has no income tax. To learn more, politics reporter Scott Greenstone spoke with KUOW's Kim Malcolm.
What's actually in this new proposal? I know there's been chatter about it for weeks, maybe even months. Was anything in here a surprise?
I don't think anything was a major surprise. Like we've been hearing, it's a little less than a dime on every dollar above $1 million, right? So if you make more than $1 million, about 9.9% of each dollar over $1 million will be taxed under this income tax proposal. And a little bit of that money, about 5%, is going to fund county public defenders, which it wasn't exactly a surprise, but I don't know that that was a big part of the discussion. Most of the money is going to go to the general fund. There was one kind of sort of surprise for Democrats, and that was the governor's response. As you mentioned, he said he needs to see more tax relief in the bill, that it's not doing enough.
A significant percentage of these revenues must go back into the pocket of Washingtonians. The current proposal is not close to achieving that important objective.
You know, Scott, I'm wondering, hearing that from the governor today kind of suggests parts of this may have been a surprise to him. Is he doing some backtracking here?
Yeah, the Democrats said they were a little surprised by his response based on a recent conversation they'd had with him. He said he was a little surprised by some of the stuff in the bill, but it's not a big deal.
Well, let's step back a bit here and just look at the bigger picture. Washingtonians have rejected income taxes a lot of times in 90 years,
yes.
10 times in that span.
10 times.
Why do Democrats think that this is going to pass now?
Yeah, I think that they're reading the political moment. You know, the last time voters said no to an income tax was in 2010. The threshold was a lot lower. It was about a quarter of what this one is. It was not a millionaire's tax. Democrats feel like the mood toward the wealthy has really shifted in the last 16 years. Here's what Representative Joe Fitzgibbon said. He's a House representative. He's the House Majority Leader, and he also is the sponsor of the House version of this tax bill.
I think it's about the mood of Washingtonians and Americans about how the federal government is tilting the playing field in favor of the wealthiest people in the country, including many of the president's friends.
And that was in reaction to a question I asked about, why now? It's a short session before a midterm. Usually, you don't drop a giant tax proposal right before an election. But they really do feel, I think, that they have cover. And so Representative Fitzgibbon was kind of answering a question that I had around, do you think that the president with, the billionaires sitting front row at his inauguration with his tax cuts for the wealthiest, does he give you cover to pass this now?
Okay, interesting. Well, Scott, there are critics of this bill. What are they saying?
Lots. Republicans, of course, excoriated it, saying, it's going to hurt our economy and that it's just a sort of tool for Democrats to keep spending when they've already been spending. State spending has exploded under the Democrats' control of Olympia in the past decade plus. There are concerns that it would raise Washington state from one of the lowest tax rates for extremely rich people to one of the highest. There's lots of criticisms of this bill right now.
Scott, I know it's still early days on this, but do you have any predictions on the chances of this bill actually passing and what it might take to get it across the finish line?
That's a good question. I think it definitely will pass in some form. It seems like the governor wants it to pass. He says, he doesn't make a lot of red lines public. So when he says, he won't sign certain versions, I don't know. He criticized Democrats' tax hikes last year and then eventually signed them into law anyway, or most of them. So I think that's mostly a negotiating tactic. I think we'll see in the next month plus, but I think it possibly even could be challenged and go to the ballot this fall as early as November. That certainly is when Democrats expect to see it going to the ballot.
Scott Greenstone speaking with KUOW's Kim Malcolm. Next time on Seattle Now, Valentine's Day is rapidly approaching, so Seattle Times food writer Ton Vin will have some tips on how to impress your date. Just make sure you follow the restaurant's 2-hour time limit.
Trust me, on Valentine's Day, if you want your romantic dinner to turn very businesslike, watch what happens if you linger for close to 2 hours.
Hear more Wednesday morning. That's all for today from the KUOW newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Andy Hurst, and I'm Paige Browning. The interview in today's episode was produced by John O'Brien. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. See ya.